How are we doing?
I think it's now.
Thank you. Going to make sure you're all awake now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Santa Clara Convention Center and Business Engagement Workshop. Thank you for joining us today. At least we're all indoors, and I think we're safe from the bad air that's been out there. So at least we can breathe easily for the next few hours, I hope. But today, I want to welcome you. Today, we're going to start to talk about how the City Council is going to look at different convention center governance and business models, and how we can start engaging in a visioning session that will identify the characteristics and the model that we would like to see in the next convention center operator. So there's a huge group of people here that are going to be helping us with our visioning session today. We hope it's a little bit interactive too, so that we can hear from you, our business community, and different representatives of our community here, residents, business communities, convention center professionals, as well as our professional staffs here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our city manager, Deanna Santana, so we can get the program started. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up the PowerPoint. Let's see if, there we are. I want to do a couple of just logistics settings here for how we'll use our time. And I'll start first by introducing our facilitator, Dr. Sean Spano, who's to the far left. And he has worked with the city before on several facilitation and community research projects. And he comes to us as the executive director for the Public Dialogue Consortium, which is a consultant agency, nonprofit consultant agency that focuses on community research, dialogue on complex issues, as well as specializing in facilitation. So thank you so much. I want to also review the agenda before I hand it over to Sean. We'll go through table setting, or just framing the issue today for governance and why business engagement is important at this point in time. We'll then go into public comment, where we'll allow for just some regular dialogue that we've had in the past. Then we will move into presentations of convention center business and governance models. And then hear an update on presentation of the request for proposals, and go through the schedule and the weighting, as well as then end with the interactive portion of the agenda, which is the visioning, dialogue, and input process. And we have a number of questions that we want to pose, as well as we'll provide the recent survey themes and trends that are coming out of the survey that we launched a couple weeks ago. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean.
Great. Thank you, Deanna. So Sean Spano, so I'll be the facilitator this evening. And just to pick up on a couple things that Deanna just mentioned, so we will have the presentation, and we'll hear the presentation about different business models and governance models on convention centers, and then we'll also hear about the RFP that's out now, asking for the new operator. So, and then we'll have an opportunity for council to ask questions after the presentation. Then we'll take a break, and then when we come back from the break, that is the interactive session that will begin. And so before the break, we'll set that up. We have 3 questions that we would like for you to respond to, and we'll tee those questions up. And the first question is a vision question. If you would imagine a few years from now, operator has been selected to run the convention center, and it's a major success. What's happening? What's happening that is different from what's happening now? And what's not happening that contributes to the success? So I just asked that big question right now to sort of get you thinking about that as we work through the presentations. And there's a couple other questions that we'll tee up as well. And what we really do see this as is a dialogue. And we're going to begin those questions, give you all an opportunity to answer the questions. We'll have speaker cards for you so we can have some organization and structure to it. And then you'll answer the first question, and then we'll get an opportunity to hear from council. So it's kind of a back and forth, and then we'll move on to the second question, hearing from you, and then the council. So we really do see this as an interactive dialogue after we work through the presentations at the very beginning. So with that said, then we are moving on to our public comment. And so this public comment period is if anybody has any comments that they would like to make on anything related to the agenda, feel free to use the time here. And Nora, do we have the speaker cards here? Oh, Maria has the speaker cards. Anybody have anything that they would like to say? Anything about the convention center, the meeting this evening? Any background information? Anybody want to offer some comments?
I think we have some cards already.
Oh, we do have cards.
Yes.
Then Nora, I'm going to just let you call folks up.
Our first speaker is Leo Wandling.
Yeah, hello, council. Feedback. All right. So my name is Leo Wandling, and I've been an event technician for about 30 years. I've been blessed to work here 30 years. I've got to work with the likes of Google, Facebook, and many of the other large tech companies here. I also work at the San Jose Convention Center, which 10 years ago looked an awful lot like here. The city opted to create a new model that included the arts, the hotels, labor, and the business interests of downtown San Jose. Today, that convention center is booked 3 years in advance. It's a phenomenal success, and what I can attribute being experienced in both here and there, the difference is all of the major partners and stakeholders are leadership of the board-driven entity called Team San Jose. This is a natural fit to forward motion the whole concept, or you said the idea, what does it look like in 5 years? That's a great segue. We have City Center coming up. Those are variables we don't even know, but they could be great, phenomenal board additions to a community-based organization. I think we have a great opportunity here to make and grab the opportunity to have a community-based organization, board-driven, all the partners on the table, and that can get things done and raise tons of money. By the way, Team San Jose is giving back tens of millions of dollars a year to the city of San Jose. If I didn't believe in this model, I wouldn't be up here right now. I live this model, and I've seen it. I'm telling you, 10 years ago, San Jose looked exactly like this convention center, kind of dilapidated down. They've spent millions in remodeling. They've gotten the hotels buy-in on a hotel tax to fund this stuff. So the city's not putting the money out. I ask you to please consider this model in all of the considerations tonight, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Leo. I think those are things we're going to be discussing this evening. Yes, okay, next, Nora.
Our next speaker is Kirk Vartan.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to thank you for giving businesses an opportunity to speak to you and to the rest of the professional staff and consultants to try and figure out how to create an atmosphere for small businesses to thrive, as well as the larger businesses in the city. As a small business, it's very challenging to exist here, not just from a rent perspective, but all costs, from labor challenges to just being competitive in this area when you have a lot of corporate entities that are doing their own things. And I'm speaking personally from the restaurant business, where you have corporate campuses doing their own things internally. You have people that are price sensitive but get paid a whole lot of money, and we continually get pressure to be as competitive as we can, but without any kind of relief from any of the other things, whether it's rent or other things like that. So it's from an affordability perspective, whether it's rents, a lot of these new construction projects are not going to have affordable rents for small businesses. I'm just flat out letting you know, as a small business owner, we will not be able to afford a location in a lot of these new places with the $8, $10 a square foot costs to operate. It's just not, I mean, corporate can do that, small business can't. Don Whedon talked about the aging population and how the 2/3 of the growth in this valley is going to be 65 or 55, 65 and over. Another interesting point is a lot of the small businesses are owned by baby boomers. Those same aging population own small businesses, and they are aging out of that business and retiring and looking to retire. So how do you deal with that 2/3 of all small businesses being owned by baby boomers that are over 65? That could be a significant and substantial impact to the ability and our quality of life in terms of the services that we enjoy here in Santa Clara and in the region. So what I would ask as a way to look at some of these things is alternative business models. The worker cooperative model is an example of something to allow for the silver tsunami to actually have an exit strategy and allow for those owners to provide employee ownership and shared ownership in an equitable way to communities and to the employees that make them successful. And I hope that's something that comes up and something that the convention center or the chamber or whoever runs this, maybe city place owners could take a shot at that and really put some energy in and hopefully some finances behind that as well to make that really a reality and to educate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all the speaker cards I have.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public presentations? Okay. Seeing none, Dr. Spanos.
Good, hearing none, then we will move forward, and our next agenda item is the presentation on business and governance models, and what we want to, what it'll focus on are best practices nationwide, and then how do those become applicable and applied specifically to Santa Clara. So we have Dan Fenton from Jones Lang LaSalle, who will be doing the presentation here. Dan? Oh, my mistake. Let's turn it back over to City Manager Santana to further set the table for us before we go to Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to start by an overview as well as our work today and what we will do with the outcome of the work. Acknowledging first that the City Council has already taken several actions to address issues that were in the audit finding relative to the Convention Center and Convention Visitors Bureau. We do have an RFP. There is a due date that is out there, December 3rd, and this presents an opportunity for the City of Santa Clara to restructure and modernize the operations of the Convention Center through a new operator. It also provides a first step for us through governance and business engagement to look at the key to our success, and we'll go in detail about how we will accomplish that. We've not had an opportunity where we were in a workshop setting, think about the opportunities that we have before us and strategically think about the future with respect to the Convention Center, the CVB, the city's role, and a vision for the future. So our work today begins by establishing a relationship with our future operator. We'll look at governance and we'll express ideal operations and outcomes of a convention center with the city's oversight. We'll receive input and we'll share the input that we've received to date that will inform for proposers what the city is looking for with respect to defining success. Our panelists are also tuning in, and I'll introduce them later in the process. They're not here, but I'll speak to them and their background and qualifications. But they are listening in so that when they receive the proposals, they'll know what the council's interested in, what the business's input has been, and they'll think that through against the criteria. And we will look at that towards aligning for a vision, goals, and outcomes that will be reflected in a management agreement. It also, for items that come up that don't have a place within a management agreement, we'll put them as a work plan item with the council's consensus on our relationship with the operator of what items we need to move on to go forward. So I'll start here by our current model, and this is our first overview of governance. Our current model has the Chamber of Commerce as an operator for both the Convention Center and previously the Convention Visitors Bureau through two separate agreements. We have the City Council at the top, the City Administration, who had oversight of the two contract agreements with the Chamber of Commerce, for which there was two divisions under the chamber structure to provide CVB services as well as convention center operations. In this model, the staff are employees of the Chamber of Commerce. So moving to the next model, what I want to start here is the way that I want to talk about governance and what the period of fluidity that we're in, and explain to you that what we know is fixed as well as what we know is still to be defined through the proposals. Our RFP, as we've presented to the council, for which the structure was already approved by the council, is pretty much a modular RFP in that it allows for the bidders to participate in the governance structure through the submittal of its business model, meaning that we have left it open for proposers to provide a convention center proposal, a CVB proposal, or a combined convention center and CVB proposal. So depending on the proposer's business model and what they present and submit, that will inform a level of governance that the council will have to think through and will reflect in agreements. The council should weigh in on these areas where the city directly oversees as the owner of this public asset, and we'll get there at the appropriate time. So what we're really doing today is assembling various pieces of the governance structure through the procurement process. We will not walk out today where the council picks an org chart and we say, okay, ready, set, go. There's still a lot of decisions to be made with respect to governance, and the first step of talking about it is this session. So let me explain a little bit about what I mean, because the concept of governance is pretty cloudy at best, and there are still a lot of unknowns with respect to how we will define governance with respect to the city's oversight of this public asset and public resources. So I've left the city council as the fixed governing body, and I've already talked about the modular RFP and the different shapes and forms that it can take. We can have a single proposer who bids, and I'm on the bottom bubble here. We can have a single proposer who bids a combined proposal where the convention center operations and CVB services are included. Or we can have a separate operator who proposes for a convention center and a separate operator who proposes for a CVB service, for which we have two different contracts, and collectively we learn how to integrate those services so that we leverage opportunities for the convention center. In between is where governance and the legal agreements will rest. This work, for right now, we have to feel comfortable not knowing what it's going to be, as well as knowing that within the business model and the fixed governing body and the responsibilities that the governing body has with respect to oversight, we will find our balance through these agreements and governance. Now, what is informed by this cloud here that we'll have to structure as we go forward with the procurement process? We have the city's role, as I've already mentioned, with the public asset and the council policies that will need to work with the council on formulating how we want our convention center operated. We have our bidders who have a business model that has, at the end of the day, there's financials attached to it, there's the business capacity with respect to the bidders, and the reality of a limited number of bids that we will receive. As well as we have stakeholder input, which is today and ongoing. We've left the survey active through the course of, and we'll continue to leave it active through the course of this procurement, so that we continue to receive input from the community as well as the businesses and inform that as our process, particularly after the due date. It will become work plan issues and the items for us to test against the work that we're going forward with. And then we have legal oversight, where we have to look at the public administration through a legal and management requirements to publicly protect this asset. So combined, that's what's going to make up governance. I have a little bubble here where I show the city's role, the bidder's business model, the stakeholder input, and the legal oversight will define how we establish our agreements as well as our governance structure. So there's no pressure today from the council or from your input that you provide to bring this into its final state. And then I just end this slide here with just an easy equation for us to remember that the governance will be the combination of the governing body, the business model, and the legal agreements. So I want to introduce how we've organized ourselves. And I mentioned when we came with the RFP that we have really top talent supporting this RFP. And particularly, I referenced our purchasing manager, Mark Giovanetti, as well as our chief operating officer, Walter Rossman, who have led some of the nation's cities with respect to procurements and RFPs of this manner. And we also have top talent throughout the RFP panel as well as through our process guidance. So on the process guidance, myself, City Attorney Brian Doyle, Jones, Lang LaSalle, Daniel Fenton, and I should put in the record, I've also stated before, JLL has no intentions of proposing. They're serving as a resource for us as we get through this process, as well as our purchasing manager. I want to spend a little bit of time on the review panel just so that you understand their background and why they were selected to serve on the review panel. We have a 7-member panel made up of city and industry experts who will be responsible for reviewing the proposals, as well as they've already agreed to the city's council-directed process integrity guidelines, meaning that they will not engage in any discussions with proposers or vendors at this point in time, nor should they be approached, as well as they've already been vetted for any conflicts of interest for which there were none. Allison Best is the Executive Vice President of Member Engagement from Destination Internationals. She has more than 15 years of experience in the destination marketing industry, holding senior leadership roles with the City of Santa Monica, Whistler, Canada, as well as the City of Oakland. She started this career in 1997 at Uniglobe Travel, and then went on to Delta Hotels in Canada. She is a certified destination marketing executive, which is the highest educational achievement in the destination marketing industry. She works to advance the mission of Destination Internationals, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C., by serving destination marketing professionals and empowering members so that their destinations excel by informing education, economic impact, job creation, community sustainability, and quality of life through travel. She works in both the United States as well as in Canada. Those are the countries for which she's assigned. Next is John Caldon. He's the Director of City Hall Events with the City and County of San Francisco. John is Director of City Hall Events, which is both the seat of government for both the City and County of San Francisco and a major tourist and destination historic landmark. He has over 20 years of experience in event and theater production. He brings a wealth of experience to the stewardship of the premier events venue. He knows the Bay Area with respect to this industry. He has also managed the War Memorial Opera House, Davies Symphony Hall, the Hearst Theater, and other notable productions include the San Francisco Symphony Black and White Ball, the Danny Boyle's Major Motion Steve Jobs event, and he is a graduate of San Francisco State University. And then last we have, last for our outside industry experts, we have Manny Gonzalez, who's the Vice President and General Manager of Great America. In addition to being the Vice President and General Manager of Great America, Manny's strengths lie in strategic management planning, external relations, development, marketing, finance, and governance of facilities, venues, and cultural attractions. He is distinguished in that he not only serves as the Vice President and General Manager of Great America, but he is also he also plays oversight or participation roles in 2 Convention Visitors Bureau, one being the Dublin Convention and Visitors Bureau in Ohio, as well as the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau, where they are charged with globally and with global markets and attracting events to those 2 convention centers. We have our finance director, who will do due diligence on the financials around these proposals, as well as reconstruct our financial relationship with an operator. Craig Mobeck, who specializes in facilities. Walter Rossman, Chief Operating Officer, as well as Ruth Shikata, who's been at this project since day one. So let me go on to the next slide. So I think we're well resourced when it comes to a review panel and our process staff guidance. The first thing to think about governance as I pass this over to Dan Fenton is that one size does not fit all. There are examples of success with each of the models that will be presented. The most effective model is the one that we determine is going to work best for the city of Santa Clara, and that we will determine this in conjunction with the final direction that the council will provide with respect to its award of the agreement. So with that, I'm going to pass it over.
Thanks, Deanna. Is this on? No. Okay, just talk. Thanks. I want to say one thing based on Deanna's comments to sort of lead into this. And when she talks about the notion of one size doesn't fit all, and even some of the earlier slides that discussed that sort of area that we were talking about when it comes to governance and oversight, really the next series of slides are designed to sort of stimulate thinking. So we're going to try to present some different pieces to think about, but we're not really here at this moment. We're really here to get everybody, sort of give information that helps everybody think through this together. So for example, one of the things when you think about sort of the balance of results of a convention center and a convention visitors bureau, there's three sort of major buckets. One is economic impact. And one of the things that might be an important thing to discuss tonight or keep thinking about is, the importance of the convention center as an economic engine and its ability to drive overnight stays, its ability to be a big part of the, if you will, the Santa Clara economy, and sort of that as one of the emphasis. And then if you look at the second one here, the convention center fiscal results is another important piece of the puzzle, and that is we want to make sure that the outcome of this, as we think about where we want to go, that we have a good plan for how we're going to fiscally manage the convention center. So things like the profit and loss of the building, continuing to maintain the building and sort of continuing to maintain it in great condition, reducing risk so that we have a good business model. Deanna mentioned this earlier, that really supports the financial success of the city as well as of the facility itself. And then three, sometimes it's not always talked about, is community impact. So this is a community asset, and we certainly want to make sure that part of the outcome of our discussion today and when we think about the future is, how do we have a plan to make sure that the local community has a chance to be a part of this important asset of Santa Clara. So when you think about these three, we use the term striking the right balance. That's something to talk about. And again, every city's different, so the key is what's right for Santa Clara. We'll go to the, it's me. Having somebody else click the slides. A couple of key considerations here when you think about models. Some of these, again, are a little repetitive, but just to think through them. One is the quality and expertise of the oversight. And probably the most important word there is expertise. And that is, how do we want to set ourselves up so that we have expertise throughout in all aspects of the sort of final direction? And that's an important consideration. Accountability. I think Deanna mentioned this also. The importance of metrics, the importance of the outcome of this. Deanna mentioned contracts, as well as the governance approach, as well as the operator. How do we make sure that one of the outcomes here is there's very strong accountability in this model that we all come up with. The flexibility. So we want to make sure we have a governance model that really creates that opening to make sure that we can be creative and we can be flexible, while at the same time having clear mission and having clear understanding of where we're going. Customer-centric. We all talk about who's the most important person when you think about governance, probably the most important person is the customer. And making sure that we've created something that is clearly focused on delivering a great experience for our collective customers. This notion of focused mission, that we could all someday, if somebody walked up to us and said, state the mission of the Santa Clara Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Convention Center, we could all just say it, because it's something that we all know and we all agree to. And then again, is sort of repeating here, but this agreed upon effective metrics. So I think one of the things that we've all talked about is the ability as part of the outcome to have a way that anybody in this room could say, how are we doing? Are we successful? Are we doing the things that we want to do through metrics that we all have agreed to together? A couple of themes. I want to talk a little bit about this slide. This was actually 2 years ago. There's been, as part of this sort of larger process, there's been discussions throughout. And this is a compilation of some discussions that went on a while ago related to the same thing we're talking about today, but also just gives you a sense of what other discussions have led to. So a couple of themes that have come out. One is seamlessness, and this says the advantage to a singular team. The point there is really the advantage to a singular mission. So regardless of what our model is, that we function in a seamless manner. Inclusivity. I think that one of the biggest reasons we're here is so we have a chance to spend time with everybody and think about, your input today. And this is an ongoing important part of our future is, how do we make sure that key partners, all of us, are part of the success or part of the process. Optimization, the notion of what does a successful convention center look like? What is our definition of success? So when we think of a active building with the kind of business mix that we'd all like to see, what does that look like? How does that drive decisions around how the building is booked? So the question of what's the emphasis when it comes to, Deanna mentioned our future operator, how do we work together on creating that question of where are we going to focus our efforts in terms of what we book in the convention center. Venue opportunities. Got to remember that we're here to talk about Santa Clara as a destination. So yes, we talk about the convention center and the Convention Visitors Bureau, but this is also Santa Clara, period. So what about other demand generators? Who are the other partners? Who are the other venues? Who are the other players that are all part of us maximizing the results for Santa Clara? Goals and accountability, the notion of making sure we establish those. We talked about that earlier. And again, the development of agreed upon metrics that are communicated. So one of the things I think we've all talked about as part of the outcome would be the communication of those metrics would be consistent and ongoing over the next period of time. A couple more criteria that we want to talk about, to just think about to stimulate conversation tonight. This issue of maximizing the convention center to its fullest potential. One of the things to think about there is the notion of a convention center being busy is one piece, but the question is it busy with the kind of business that everybody in this room feels is clearly the highest priority for Santa Clara. That's part of what we want to certainly hear feedback from tonight and hear thoughts on that. Developing the highest physical performance that we can, making sure that we're running it as fiscally sound as we can, reduce costs and risks to the city. We mentioned that. Creating meaningful community impact, so that's something that we know we've been able to do. Maintaining the center in superior condition. One of the opportunities here is to think about what models and what approaches are really going to keep this building in pristine condition. And again, delivering economic impact, room nights, et cetera, to Santa Clara. So these are things that are all part of key criteria to consider. And really tonight, I think for purposes of what we're doing is we're just trying to help everybody think about what some of those potential are and maybe talk about them when we turn it back over to Sean and get people thinking about where they see these priorities as part of tonight's discussion. A couple of things too when it comes to the actual notion of governance, and that is, Deanna mentioned the council. Obviously, the council is always in the governance model sort of at the top of the chart, if you will. And how do we make sure that the council is essentially supported in a way that they can function as an effective governing body? The issue of public facility and resource support. So how do we make sure that there's ongoing support for the convention center and what it does? Transparency. And you think about governance, one of the importance of successful governance is a transparent model, transparent approach. The missions of the Convention Center and the Convention Visitors Bureau essentially must be the same. Deanna showed different models where they could be theoretically separate or together depending on how the respondents respond to the RFP. The point that I think is we all believe is that regardless of that we want those efforts to be essentially working on a common mission that everybody's agreed to, that the council is involved with. Everybody tonight can talk about components that they feel should be in that mission. We talked about accountability. The environment needs to support the mission. So when we think about things that we believe are important tonight, how do we create an environment that is going to be able to support what we're talking about, and strategic and informed oversight. So however the oversight is set up, how do we make sure that governance model is strategic in its nature and that it is informed well when it comes to decisions that are made going forward? A couple of things here, just to, again, from a standpoint of different, we talked about the industry. These are three different sort of industry operating models that are out there related to convention center. These are sort of broad areas. One is publicly operated. That's a situation where a convention center is staffed with public employees and function as a department of a city. There is a private operator, a for-profit operator, which is essentially, if you think about the RFP that we have out there now, we are soliciting feedback and thought from for-profit operators. And the third one is sort of a nonprofit environment where the centers run, under a nonprofit or a 501c6 type of environment. Those are the three main categories for how convention centers are operated throughout the country. Next piece here is a little bit on CVBs. So this is a breakdown of some of the different models with CVB. You'll see that 60% of convention visitors bureaus in the U.S. are 501c6s. 10% are either quasi-government organizations. 10% are actually public, so they're run directly by cities or counties. 4% of chambers are part of chambers of commerce, and a small percentage are run by private corporations. Nearly 60% of all CVBs are non-membership, and over 40% actually have a membership model. And I just want to, when we say this, I want to go back to Deanna's comment about, we need to talk about tonight of what's right for Santa Clara. So what are the things that are going to be right for us? And we're giving you this context only to help stimulate thinking, but not that any one is right or wrong, but just so you get a sense of sort of what what is going on out there. If you think about the CVB for a moment, and this has come up even in the discussions to bring here today, and you think about Santa Clara today. Now, again, all sorts of great things are happening in Santa Clara, and the destination is going to continue to evolve. But today, the real focus, we believe, and this is something also that could be discussed, I think, Sean, in the further discussions, is we've noted here that the real focus for Santa Clara right now is on meetings and conventions, and that is really where we have strength. We're in essentially the heart of Silicon Valley. You think of who is around us. You think of all the possibilities that occur here, and by the way, have occurred here over the years. And we believe that's an important strength that we want to see focused on in the future. But again, good discussion. So we asked this question about what do we want our future CVB to do? So that could be another important thing to talk about tonight. But we're suggesting here that focus should be really on how we continue to enhance ourselves as a meetings and convention destination. Next thing here is a couple things that more features related to governance. So we'll move quickly here. But again, the governing bodies, council oversight, the different sort of types, so that if you think about this where it says council oversight, direct or indirect, and then it says nonprofit board, that's the notion of there can be, direct oversight, there can be potentially a board that is formed as part of the outcome. There could be different ways to look at models that include that. The nimbleness, again, we talked about this earlier, making sure that our model is flexible to continue to look at future trends, making sure there's clear reporting relationships, fiduciary responsibility. So the notion of, if we're going to talk about different governance opportunities, how do we make sure we distinguish where there's fiduciary responsibilities, where there's advisory responsibilities, and how does that ultimately roll up to the most effective model for Santa Clara? Operational alignment. So again, we talked about this earlier, but how do we create a model that makes sure there's alignment between the CVB activities and the convention center? And sales and marketing. So the idea that we want to make sure we create something together that really stimulates the most effective sales and marketing environment that we can. So how do we do that? How do we create that sort of nimbleness that makes sure that we've positioned ourselves for success going forward?
Before you get started, I just want to clarify, you made a statement, but we are soliciting proposals from both not-for-profit and for-profit. So
Okay,
just
sorry.
for the record.
Gotcha. Okay. It was an open RFP, essentially, right, that everybody could. Thank you. Great. So the next piece here, Deanna showed you this. So just again, this is where we are today. So we'll move, but she's explained this, so we'll go to the next one here. We want to do, and before we do this, again, remember, we want to show you just some samples of models. We have some examples on the right-hand side of each one of the cities that have these particular models. And again, I want to restate a little bit that these are designed for people to look at sort of components too. So again, I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, that it's not just because somebody else does it doesn't mean we should, but it gives you a chance to see, what are some other models that are out there. The first one is, this is a model where the city administration would, and the council would oversee essentially through a contract relationship. They would oversee a private operator who would manage both the CVB and the convention center together. So this is a model where singular contract, all in a private environment, all run by a private operator. And you can see one example of that model. The next one is an authority model. And that's a situation where the city council, again, is overseeing the whole thing. The city administration is responsible for a contract that is between the, in this case, this is a title, could be called something else, but this sort of convention and visitors authority or a board that is engaged to provide governance oversight, provide strategic oversight to the Convention and Visitors Bureau and to the Convention Center. In this particular case, the color coding here, in this particular model, the employees of the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Convention Center are actually employees of the authority. So that's another model. The third one here has some similarities where there is a fiduciary board that has a contract through an entity with the city administration and the council. However, in this case, that authority contracts or is the contract administrator, if you will, or works directly with a private operator for the convention center, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau is separate and could be, in this case, employees of the authority. So that's another model that's out there. This one is one that is out there in the industry, and this is one where there are two contracts. So there's a contract directly from the city administration to the private operator of the convention center, whose staff is staffed as convention center, and then they have a separate contract with a independent Convention Visitors Bureau, if you will, and that's staffed by that organization. So that's another model that exists. This is one we'll move quickly. This is one where the convention center and the Convention Visitors Bureau are all public employees of the city or of the public entity. This is a model where the convention center is public, but the Convention Visitors Bureau has a contract relationship with the city. And this is one where the employees are public employees of the city, but there is a fiduciary board that is inserted between the, if you will, the city administration and the city employees as a way to bring the private sector into the, if you will, into the model. So those are just some examples. And when we turn it back to Sean, Sean can talk more about this, but again, the goal here was to just stimulate thinking about what some of those modules are, what some of those possibilities are when we think about governance. So I will, Mark, turn it over to you and talk about the RFP. Point.
I think, pointer, I don't think I need it.
Or do you need a pointer?
No. I'll give you the pointer. Go ahead, Brian. Good evening. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the key elements that were incorporated in this RFP to ensure that the process is transparent, that specifications and requirements were structured to allow maximum flexibility and not lock respondents into specific business models or solutions. And we're employing some best practices with a two-phased evaluation process and process integrity guidelines to ensure the equal treatment of everyone that's involved in the process. So to assist with transparency, we are utilizing for the first time here at Santa Clara the BidSync bid notification tool. Go ahead, Brian. So BidSync is an online portal that facilitates the one-to-many flow, communications flow, the city being one, the vendor community being many, for this RFP. What's very powerful and unique about the system, it's a push system. So instead of just posting the RFP, say, and all associated documents, documents associated with the RFP on our website and passively hoping that the participants in the process see them, vendors are actively notified. The vendor community is actively notified with an email correspondence every time an action is taken. So for instance, when we released the RFP, many thousands of vendors registered on the system received an email notification that the city has released this RFP. There was a summation, and click here to go ahead and view the RFP and participate if you're interested.
That also applies to all the ongoing documents, in particular addenda. There's many addenda that take place. Again, they're notified that an addenda has been published. All Q&A on the system flows through BidSync. Questions are posted anonymously and the city answers them. They're notified when the city has answered questions. And then award and post-award documents will also be posted on the system. So the notice of intended award will summarize all of the participants, all of the respondents, I should say, what the various scores were and who's recommended for award to City Council. So Deanne already spoke to the modular nature of the RFP. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about it. We did attempt to make it easy for the proposers. They don't have to submit 3 proposals or up to 3 proposals if they're interested in all 3. They can submit 1 proposal. They check off what it is they're interested for. The information that they provide is in sections, and we'll just go ahead and evaluate those sections that are associated with the modules that they're bidding on. The RFP is structured, the requirements or specifications in the RFP are designed to be open and dynamic. I call dynamic. And by open, you've surmised by now, we don't have a solution. We're not telling them how to meet our requirements. We're looking for that expertise from the vendor community. And as part of that, we're actually obtaining real-time, what I call real-time feedback from the business communities for proposers to consider in their response. So the examples of that are the postcard survey, the online survey, and then this meeting here is being streamed live, and then it's going to be archived so that the respondents can consider the information and incorporate it into their proposal response. So in the RFP, the evaluation process is explained, and what the criteria are. This table is out of the RFP. So you can see it's a 2-phase process. Phase 1 consists of a evaluation of the paper proposals. You can see what the criteria are and their associated weights. And then the highest scoring proposals, the highest ranked proposals, those vendors will be invited to phase 2, which consists of oral presentations, and we're going to ask for financial proposals at that time. We have not asked for financial proposals in this initial RFP for their proposal submission. The oral presentations, typically there's a structured piece where they all respond to the same information in the agenda that we've set up, and then there's a piece that is specific to what they proposed in their proposals. So the evaluation panel has an opportunity to drill down and see if they can walk the talk in terms of what they submitted in their proposals. Just back to the 2-phase process very briefly. Can you go back real quick right now? Yeah, there we go. It does expedite the process. Generally, we can, instead of evaluating everything up front, we can expedite and we can get down to a short list of the most viable proposals more quickly through the phase 1 process, and then spend more time on the more credible and viable proposals in phase 2. And finally, we're introducing process integrity. And process integrity is mainly about controlling the flow of communications. It's about conflict of interest and confidentiality. So the respondents, city staff, our elected officials, they've all been directed to direct all questions and communications to the procurement contact. So if they're contacted, for instance, if anyone is contacted by one of the participants in the process, they're instructed really not to have a discussion while the RFP is in process, and to direct their question to, in this case, it would be me, the purchasing manager that's facilitating the RFP. And the reason for that is we're just trying to treat everyone equally. We're trying to make sure everyone has the same information. So if we choose to respond to what the question is, we will post it out on the BidSync system as a question that was received and our response, so that everyone has the same information. Evaluators are held to even a higher standard. Evaluators, they're required to complete a conflict of interest form. which is designed to vet any issues that may exist, either perceived or otherwise, that would impact their ability to fairly and objectively score the proposals. They're also asked to actually sign a confidentiality form, just to make sure that they're not sharing information either with each other, because we're asking that they score independently, at least initially. There are group settings, but again, they're scoring independently, and they're not sharing any of the proposal information with anyone on the outside. And then we're introducing an objection and protest process. So right now, if any of the participants have a problem, any kind of problem with the structure of the RFP, the two-phase process, the weights, they can take an objection and we would consider that. And if we felt it had merit, we would go ahead and amend the RFP, issue an addendum. The reason for that is it's better to hear about it now than at the end when we can't do anything about it. The protest process is typically reserved for after the recommendation of award is made public. It allows any of the participants in the process, typically someone who did not win, one of the vendors who did not win, to file a protest if in fact they felt that there was anything unfair about the process, anything about the process itself. That's it.
Okay, that's it, Mark?
Yes, sir.
So now we'll have an opportunity for council to have any questions of clarification for Deanna, for Dan, or for Mark on anything you've heard so far.
Mark, where are we in the process right now, exactly?
The period for questions and answers ended on Wednesday of this week. Let me see, on November the 7th, actually, we responded to probably 40 questions, I think, that came in. A lot of the questions were about providing documents, documentation, information, financial information about the, about the convention center. We responded last night partially, and we finished responding today. Let me see here. I have the RFP. And I think, isn't there a timeline slide somewhere?
The last slide.
Okay, we'll get to a timeline slide, but just,
So the bids are due, or the
the bids are due December the 3rd.
December the 3rd?
Uh-huh. And then the evaluation process takes place starting December the 4th through the 18th. We're going to notify the highest ranked proposers that will be invited for the oral presentations, and we'll request, I'm sorry, we're going to request financial proposals at the conclusion of the proposal evaluation. So we'll have our short list. So we'll send out the financial proposals to the shortlisted vendors. We'll invite them for oral presentations, and everyone's been asked to reserve the week of January the 7th for the oral presentations. The evaluation of and scoring of the financial proposals takes place the 14th to the 16th of January. There is as part of phase 2, I didn't mention this, but there is a best and final option. So if we learn things through the oral presentations, anywhere, we want to memorialize something that we heard. We want to make sure it's on paper and they're agreeing to it. If we want any further clarifications, we will utilize the best and final offer process option the week of January the 21st. The baffles will be scored, and they're going to get scored against the criteria that you saw there, those weights and criteria, and then we'll issue our notice of intended award. We'll post it out on BidSync February the 4th.
So I have a question on the criteria. I understand how you weigh each section in the beginning for the beginning of the RFP. You allocated, a certain percentage for each thing.
Mark, I have the slide up.
Oh, the weight slide?
The weight slide.
Did I go?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going for the
weight,
the criteria and the weight. So I guess I
criteria
need
and
to
the
go
weighting.
back, Sean.
Well, my question is, so one of the things you talked about is we want to be creative and flexible in terms of the proposals that come in. And I see the weight is, I think it's based mainly just on experience in the team.
At least initially, correct.
Which one?
It was,
which-
go back
it's,
a little bit. It's the blue.
next one.
The blue slide. Has the, right
There
there.
you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I see the beginning is capabilities, technical expertise, that. Once you get to the financial proposals and the oral presentations as to what they're actually proposing, I want to make sure that there's room in there for the creativity and the flexibility, because I know that's hard to actually score, and that's a little bit subjective in terms of what that is. So how is that part being accounted for in terms of creativity and flexibility in this type of a system?
I think in phase one, it would be in the value add, in that criteria there, products and capabilities. And in phase two, through the oral presentation, we can certainly incorporate that as part of the criteria that we're asking them to address.
Okay, so, yes.
Show up as part of their experience. If they have experience in convention center or CVB operations, they clearly want to detail it in their summary of experience. They're tuning in this evening, or they'll tune into the live stream later, so they will know, if, as you put your comments out as a council, that this is an important area of interest to look for.
So,
Can I have
yeah,
one more comment?
sure.
In the RFP, we also put together, you'll see this, there's some objectives in there. So there's some things to try to sort of probe thinking in the RFP. And when we had the pre-proposal meeting, we did that too. We presented things to sort of stimulate that thought. So there's some principles, if you will, or thoughts in the RFP to sort of help what you're talking about.
Because I know we purposely didn't put out a particular model.
Right.
Because I know we were going to talk about it this evening, but we didn't put a particular model to spur on creativity and flexibility. So when it does come to the point where, depending on how many proposals are submitted, that part of the proposal is being graded or judged, at what point does the council get to weigh in in terms of, because I believe you're not going to be comparing apples to apples in any of the proposals. They're all probably going to be fairly different in terms of their approach. So at what point does the council get to weigh in on the creativity and flexibility, because it is subjective?
Should I jump in here? I think we probably should have something in the RFP that would allow the proposers to understand that at some point the council will weigh in, as particularly on the governance model aspect of this, because the way this will work is you may have different modules, and you may be able to score the modules separately, and then maybe there'll be this model. This came out, if you're going to do just the management model, and then you're going to have a separate CVB model, you may have three choices that the council could consider with three separate scores, so that the ultimate decision is not necessarily made by the evaluation team, but still allow the council to weigh in on the mix of the recommendation from the evaluation team, but make it clear in the RFP that the council will make the ultimate decision using its judgment about what the best governance model would be.
I think that's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
because I want to reserve our right at some
I think we
point
should state that in the
where
RFP.
we get to see maybe the one that's recommended, but the others as well, because there may be something that we favor more than the final recommendation.
I think it's important to comment as much as you can so that we know that going forward, but also to leave enough flexibility with the council that if you feel in a January priority setting session that you want to check in, if you've had further thoughts, you'll have your newly elected council members in place, that we pause for a moment there and dedicate some time where if new thoughts have come up or new sets of events or any type of actions that would influence what we should be thinking as we're going through the process, then the council should collectively say we'd like to have a special dedicated discussion on this very topic. I can say, though, that the later part of this session is designed for the council to look at the creativity, what's trending out in the industry, and then we ask 3 questions, which we've also been surveying both by the written survey as well as the online survey, to collect the information to continue to get input. So the creative thinking is the second part of the workshop where we'll show you a lot of glossy pictures of what's happening out in the industry.
Yeah, and I think that I still want to reserve the fact that,
Absolutely.
because we're not the experts, the experts are out there, and they're going to come with something that we maybe couldn't even imagine.
Right.
That's in that creative as to something that really, affects us. So I just want to make sure at some point that we are the ones that are able to check in and see what these proposals are at some point, because we're not the experts and they are, so. Yes.
Original question, some of the questions that we're asking them to respond to, or bullets that we're asking them to respond to, and to Deanna's point, this is under management and operations plan for the convention center. Example, summarize the specific initiatives you would consider to optimize the convention center while containing and managing costs. Summarize the specific initiatives you would consider to increase revenues. Describe your approach. So those are the kinds of thought-provoking questions that we're trying to generate in the document.
I expect that we will get creative proposals. I just want to make sure that if there's only one that's going to be recommended, that I don't know if that's the best one for what we want. I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to see what comes in.
What we will do, and we've done this before, is as we prepare our staff report, we will make sure that as we make a recommendation, that we also provide the council with the bidders that went through the process that were narrowed down, and trade-offs or observations that were successful and positive in their proposal, as well as areas that led us to not propose a recommendation, so that you have that information and there's a higher level of relief in terms of, or confidence in the recommendation that staff's making. And if there's not, then we'll get there when we get there.
Right, it's such an important decision for us. I want to make sure we're fully informed.
But this is actually an excellent point of why this workshop is important, because through that question, I'm looking at Walter and Mark, because we've done this before on other procurements. We've now changed how we're going to structure the staff report to come to the city council.
Okay, thank you. Teresa?
Okay, other questions?
So my question has to do with, there were some comments made at the beginning about like the, state of the facility, and some comments, one of the members of the public that spoke about what's gone on with San Jose. And so, we do have to look at the reality of that. I think our operators have done as good a job as they could, given the financial resources that we have invested in this facility. And so when we're talking to all these people and looking for creative solutions, are we saying, okay, that's for within the footprint of the building as it currently exists in its current condition? And, are we allowing for, like a real what if type of moment, or like the reference to San Jose going in and increasing their transit occupancy tax in order to fund a major expansion of a convention center. So that's the I'm looking at in, how are we, so are they just going to be proposing based on the here and now, or on the possibility like, oh, okay, if we did increase the TOT by 2% and there was a lot of money, or if we went out and did a bond measure and build a whole new convention center, what would you do with it, kind of thing? So,
Do you want to take the first stab and then I can add on?
I was very familiar with the procurement process for Team San Jose getting the convention center in San Jose. It was not a single proposal to do that by Team San Jose. Team San Jose did not come in with a proposal to say, we'll do this and we'll majorly expand the convention center. They said, we could be a partner in doing that, but it was not part of their proposal to the city to expand the convention center. And it would be very hard to do, because it's like putting the chicken before the the egg or the cart before the horse, or however you want to look at it. You don't know, how can you evaluate the proposal because you don't know whether the TOT tax would be there, whether it really depends on who the proposers are.
So they're just supposed to be looking at current state.
I mean,
not
they
future
can certainly
state.
say things in their proposal about, initially this is what we could do and this is what we would be prepared to do, and you could hear that, but that's not what happened in San Jose. That's not how the San Jose expansion occurred. It was not part of the RFP in terms of choosing the operator at that point.
I want to get back to my first slide in terms of we are beginning the relationship today with the future operator. And if you recall, I started with we're going to do an exercise here to begin to think through governance. The last bullet on that slide was it's a future work plan. And so that is a great question because it allows for us to signal to a future operator, or at least in a new management agreement, the work plan efforts that we will need to brainstorm and collectively work toward, if that's a direction that is surfaced in a proposal, as well as the direction that the city council would like to pursue. So we are, it's an RFP process. We've laid out criteria for which we will be measuring the evaluation process through the value add products and capabilities, as well as their demonstration of experience. It is very likely that a proposer will have that kind of background where there's the opportunity to improve the facility or the performance of the convention center into the example that was used earlier. But that would be a future work plan effort, that there's no commitment that, the city's going to be going for a certain percent of TOT or other items. We have to work that through, and it relies on several other stakeholders who aren't in the room and who where there's an additional set of actions that need to take place, but it would definitely be a work plan item.
Okay.
I had one just quick comment. Even though this is inside the building, there is a part of the RFP that asks the proposer to talk about capital planning, and they have all done walkthroughs of the building, so even inside the four walls, we are asking for them to think about, what would they do and how would they create a sort of a financial model that includes capital planning. So there is some thinking within the walls.
Okay, great.
Kind of
Thank
getting
you.
them to give us their ideas.
Okay, other questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So actually, two questions. One was to the mayor's point, as far as this is going to be a new experience for us, and this is going to be very important. I would like to see all the a synopsis of all the responsive bids, just because kind of like when you put a house on the market, the prices could be different, the purchase prices offered could be different, but there could be contingencies, so the best price with more contingencies is maybe not the best overall bid, overall offer that you want to accept. So I like the mayor, would like to see, if there's some that are just strictly non-responsive, that's fine, but those that do respond to most of the criteria, just so we can compare and contrast. And then also, I am interested to see how they would address not just internal improvements, but expansion of our center. What's their vision of taking this to the next level, so to speak, to get this convention center so it can serve, bigger conventions, and attract bigger trade shows and all of that. And we've been constrained by space restrictions. And I think future operators, I would like to see a future operator be on board with the challenge of expanding this center.
Good. And other questions? Is that it?
Mr. Fenton, I want to thank you because we're here because of you, and you gave us that wonderful report a long time ago. My concern was kind of with Teresa also, with the CIP. I mean, how this place, and people know that, I have said this publicly, that it needs to blow it up and either rebuild it or whatever. I think that where we are right now, the tech companies are not looking at us because we don't have the space or the capabilities for these, conventions that are going on, nor for them when they have their big conventions. The other thing that I hear, that when conventions come, we don't have that walkability factor that they're looking for when they go to other convention areas. So that was my concern. So I'm hoping that they have that built into that system where we can build outside the walls and figure out how we were going to do this. I think within the constraints that they have right now, it's very limited in some of the things they can do from past practices that we've seen before. So those are my concerns. And marketing. Like, who are we really marketing to? Where are we going to get these people to come from? Team San Jose, they're probably our competitor, I guess, in size and capability. We are not Moscone. They get higher numbers of convention goers. So I'm real concerned about, we are Silicon Valley, but we have a lot of stakeholders in this area, and I want to make sure everybody has a say in what's going on. So I kind of agree that we need to look at these RFPs from a holistic kind of a view, because what might work for Great America and the tech companies and the 49ers and whoever's out here, and then City Place is going to land on us. So I want to make sure that we are ready to take on what's coming at us. So that's what, that is my concern. And I know that we're putting it out now, but I like the 5-year strategy. I think we really need to look into the future, what's coming down. So, and I want to be ready for that. I don't want to do that. We did it, and then now what do we do?
Couple of quick comments. I mean,
Okay.
a couple of things you've said, which maybe would be a good one to add as an addendum from this discussion. You talk about destination development. That may be something we want to call out, from this conversation, to get some of that thinking from the respondents around that piece, because I think that hasn't been covered. The issue of who we're targeting has definitely been covered in terms of trying to probe their thinking around, who's our target audience, that piece. The issue of your point about, blowing the building up. I mean, we really have said to them, think creatively from a design perspective and sort of what you see. But I think that destination development piece could be something that, as part of the outcome of this, we would sort of put an addendum out there to get that sort of thinking.
I know Deanna's going to get me. Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to add that in the RFP, we did seed the information in that the next 5 years shows that there's the build out of phase 1 for City Place. We described what phase 1 brings, as well as the City Place project, so that the potential bidder knows that there is much more of a larger vision in this area around the convention center. So
Okay.
we feel as if we've seeded it, and it clearly should be an attractive component of a bidder's proposal.
And the other thing is that we are global. So we have to be ready for people that don't speak English or be flexible in that area. And I think that is an important part of how we market and who we bring in, because you want to make our guests comfortable. And I think that is a strong point that some people miss, some people get, but we're very global. So I think that when City Place goes in, we might be looking at a lot of huge corporate headquarters. So I just want to be ready for this, so that when they look at this place, they can say, I want to be over there or here or wherever.
Great.
So that's pretty much my input
Great.
on that one. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Okay, Mayor, Council, any other questions?
Kathy?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You're on.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the presentation, and to add to what Councilmember Davis said, thank you also for your presentation and your participation in really bringing this to awareness to us, so that we can be here today and find out how we want to make the convention center work better. So I do have a couple of questions. As part of the RFP, are they being asked to potentially how many years this contract is going to be for? Is that
5 plus 5? 15 max, 15 years maximum. 5 base year plus, I believe it's 2 5-year options to extend.
okay? Thank you. Yeah, and the reason I ask is because during the duration of the contract, I would imagine, the area is going to be changing, the vision is going to be changing. So will that be built into the RFP, how they envision the convention center growing as part of how the area grows? How would they work with that change?
I'll start by restating that we have strategically put into the RFP the elements of this area with respect to City Place, Great America, Levi Stadium, transit. I will allow, or not allow, but I think it's important for Brian to make comments that we do have some major decisions to make with respect to the dissolution of redevelopment that inform how we proceed. But nonetheless, it does clearly state in the RFP that there is a lot of desirable development happening, some of which you approved on Tuesday, and that a savvy bidder with experience that comes with an interest in really Silicon Valley, strategically, geographically located facility has a great opportunity, and a seasoned bidder should be able to see that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, Brian, if you want to add
sorry.
any comments. I'm sensitive to.
Well, I don't want to say too much, but I don't think it's any secret that there's quite a bit of entanglements in this property here. And so I think that the various different parties that are interested in this property in terms of managing it or making it grow in a different way would have to recognize those elements. This is not a blank slate by any means, this piece of property. And it really depends on who proposes. I mean, if someone has a much bigger vision for the area, they could propose, bringing a lot of money to this and changing around how the property is configured. But we don't know that until a proposal is made. So I think the RFP is set up for a wide variety of visions for how this property might evolve, but it's really going to depend on their proposal as opposed to something we can make happen.
Okay, thank you. And then just finally, I do agree with a couple of the comments that were made that the council should have the opportunity to review the RFPs as well. Just besides the final decision, but just to be able to review and just see who the other contenders were, basically. That's all. Thank you.
So we will prepare synthesized information for the RFPs and include that as part of our staff report.
Okay, very good. So we are going to get ready for a break, but before we get ready for the break, let's prepare for the visioning dialogue that will happen after the break. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 questions that we will pose and invite members of the public to answer these questions, and we'll distribute these cards, and you can actually indicate which questions you want to answer on the cards. It would be great if you wanted to answer all 3 questions. Imagine that it's 5 years from now. Council has selected the Convention and Visitor Bureau provider, and by all accounts, they are exceeding everyone's most optimistic expectations. In short, the arrangement is a major success. What is happening to make this a success? What is not happening that also contributes to the success? So a real vision question there. And as Dan has mentioned numerous times, a lot of the presentation on what he was presenting was really designed to start stimulating some thinking, not making decisions. This is a really open-ended question here. Question 2, how should the new operator interact and engage with local businesses? More specifically, in what areas can the new operator and local businesses improve their relationship to strengthen, support, and grow local businesses? What do you need as a local business? What kind of support are you looking for? And this gets we're not making any decisions tonight, and we're certainly not choosing the model. That's all come through the RFP, but taking an initial pass and providing some feedback to council and to the review panel. What are the most important qualities and characteristics you want to see in the next center operator and a visitors bureau provider? What should be emphasized in making the selection? So those are the 3 questions, and I'm going to circulate the cards now, and please put your name on the card, and there's a spot, the questions are on the back. I'll post these when we come to that segment, and there's a space here. Do you want to answer question 1, 2, or 3? And again, please answer all 3 questions, or whatever you choose, but you're welcome to answer all 3. I should also say that when we immediately come back, we're going to run through some quick slides about recent trends in convention centers and what's happening out there, some cool trends. And that too is just designed to help some creative thinking and to help people a little bit out of the box thinking, and that will set up our visioning dialogue piece. So with that said then, let's take 10 minutes. Can we take 10 minutes and take a break, and then we'll reconvene and start the visioning dialogue.
Thank you. I feel like I have to sing or something here. But we just wanted to, with what we're going to show you, part of the goal here with some of the pictures, and we're going to break them down these areas, was like Sean said, again, as we lead into the discussion, to sort of stimulate thought. Again, not necessarily to dwell on all the specifics here, but just stimulate thought and run through a couple of things that we've all seen. We all kind of as a team compilated some of these visuals in some of these areas. And some of this speaks to even some of the dialogue that's already gone on. So we kind of broke it into 5 areas: multifunctional space, food and beverage, technology, sustainable practice, and arts and culture. So just to run through some things here under multifunctional, this picture here is an interesting contrast. The one on the right is a expo center. So it's a center that is primarily focused on sort of local, non-room night generating events. And then on the left, you can see sort of a vibrant space there that's designed here. That one of them is it's an expo center, one's a convention center. So again, just the notion of what can happen, and the comments that were made here about our future and sort of creative thinking around space. Here's another one. This is the center, different ways to lay out different trade shows. Here's another, and this is one where this is a multifunction space. So this is the idea of flexibility. This is a food and beverage function, but this space can also do other things. So it's designed to be flexible, and this is in Los Angeles. Here's another one. You think about how important sports are. So the flexibility of when we think about our future and we think about the importance of the sports market, how can we continue to work on ways to be able to accommodate or host those kind of events. This is another one. This is a ceremony. So things that happen. This is the Los Angeles Convention Center. So different things going on there. And one of the things, this is another one here. This is Ocean City, Maryland. So this is one where this is similar. We have an auditorium kind of space, and this is one where they're using it for concerts and they're doing different things. So again, you think about Sean, the point about visualizing the future, and what do we see the future of the convention center? Part of it even is with the building, creating some interesting creativity about how we could even continue to use our building maybe in a different way or having some unique approaches to it. Here's another multi-function space that's in the Los Angeles Convention Center. Again, you look at the sort of ceiling height that's there, but yet the ability to drive ambiance in that room. So that room can do multiple things. You could do light exhibits in that room as well as do food and beverage. One of the big trends in space is flexibility. So how do you create something that can really do multiple events well? And that could be part of the future. And I think, when it comes to listening to some of the experts when it comes to the RFP response, I'm sure we're going to get some thinking around that whole question of flexibility. This is another one. This is an interesting one because this is actually a space that was created for an event. So this is all of that is portable there. It's not permanent, but it was created to create a certain environment that an event wanted. So this is an interesting concept, and this could be something that is certainly part of our future and sort of, again, part of the council members' comments about stimulating creativity and thinking. Let's not necessarily look at our space and think that, it is what it is. Maybe there's different ideas that we're going to all have going forward when it comes to what we can do here. This is New Orleans. There's a little bit of, using pre-function space differently. and different ways to do things there to accommodate, accommodate groups or do things that, with them. This is an interesting thing where this is a situation where, large spaces have been used in a somewhat non-traditional way with exhibits or with grouping. One of the things that we see a lot when it comes to trends is people don't want to, for example, the way this room is set today with the way the chairs are lined up and the way you're sort of sitting, we hear a lot from attendees now where they say to us, we don't want to sit that way. We want to do something different. We don't want to be in a chair that's 2 inches from the next chair and I'm a foot in front of the other person and we're going to sit there for 3 hours and listen to a PowerPoint or something. They want to think differently. So these are different ways that that's been done, and we could think about this in the future. Same thing here. You think about the different kind of performance spaces, and also you think about that meeting space there. Just through lighting and through different things, how can we think about our meeting space going forward and make sure it's something that that is continuing to be dynamic? You think about technology. So the issue of readiness. Earlier one of the council members was talking about we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. You think about who our clients are, and we do a great job of this. I know we have capacity today, but where does that future? So where's the future of what our clients are going to be looking for when it comes to bandwidth, when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to simulcasting? All the things that go on. So this is an example in Austin where, they pride themselves on their ability to be ready. Personalized technology, so things where in a specific small space, this could be streamed into a small space. There could be different things that are going on here. Signage, how people get around, how people, the comment was made about the destination, about Santa Clara, period. So how do we help people both navigate our convention center, but also navigate and see all the great things that there are to do in Santa Clara? You think about how important food and beverage is. Food and beverage can be one of the big signature items. Sometimes food and beverage sort of sets the tone for the overall kind of visioning of the convention center, period. So you can see several different things here with retail concepts, with coffee concepts. Some of these are portable, some of these are built in. So there could be visioning around the future of, how do we make our convention center vibrant through different ways to sort of tie into food and beverage options. We've seen situations here where even we have a chance to get local culinary talent involved sometimes in these situations. Here's another example where, and I know that we have, a lot of great people here too today, but the whole idea that, when people think about eating at a convention center, you think about getting an invitation. And the invitation says you're going to go to this gala event and it's going to be at the quote unquote convention center. It tends to make you think, oh boy, that's not going to be the most exciting food and beverage experience. But look at these examples where, food and beverages continues to play a role. And, a lot of the great chefs that are out there and the trends are going to be that whatever you see there could be done for 5,000 people because they continue to think about ways to deliver innovation and quality to large groups. Here's the whole issue of portable. So ways to bring different concepts depending on the event right to where we want them to be. So these, whether it's coffee type opportunities or others, you think of sort of pop-up. This is the idea. This is this one in Pittsburgh. There's one in Denver like this. This is the whole idea of actually growing and using part of the convention center property. Could be the roof, could be other places to actually have your own gardens, herb gardens, things like that to really drive the notion of using local products and sort of driving that kind of local feel. Sustainability. This is an area that it continues to be a big one, and this notion of LEED certification. And part of LEED certification isn't just the materials that are in the building; it's also how we operate the building. So, sort of continuing to stimulate or challenge our partners out there to, how do we become the most sustainable? You've heard of comments like zero waste when it comes to convention centers. The notion of food donations and both sustainability and ways to engage with the community. So this is an example where this creates both sustainable practice and creates a great social cause here to try to help in terms of feeding our community. Indoor agriculture. So this is an actual, in this particular case, the chef goes in here and she or he will pick the herbs out of this or pick vegetables out of this, and it's actually an interior agriculture place that they grow product, if you will. Arts and culture. So the other thing too is the issue of how do we engage with our cultural community. So you think about all the creative people in some of the different places in Santa Clara, how do we engage them when it comes to the future of our convention center? So these are examples. These are sometimes they're public art pieces, sometimes they're exhibitions that are put into convention centers. It's Nashville, this is Boston, but you can see this whole point of, how do we bring creativity. And even though some of these that you see here, you think, okay, well, that's going to be gazillion dollars to do this. What we're really trying to stimulate is, how do we sort of think this way? Like, how do we all together think this way going forward? It could be a smaller installation. It could be the way that we approach certain things where we're trying to bring our local cultural community into what we do. You see examples here in Seattle of, again, bringing art into the convention center. So we just wanted to run through that, Sean, and as a way, we'll give it back to you. But we thought that was sort of an interesting way to kick it off and have Sean go from here, just to kind of get everybody's mind moving on what some of the really cool things that are happening. And like Sean, like you said, what are we going to be thinking about 3 to 5 years from now?
Great,
So
very
we'll
good.
turn it back to you.
Great, thank you, Dan. Okay, so we have speaker cards now, and I'll call folks up. I have 3 speaker cards. I hope to have a few more as we continue on. We'll take each question one at a time. We'll take question 1, hear from business community or community at large, and then we'll have an opportunity, then council will have an opportunity to answer the question. So we'll go back and forth as we work through each question. So Kirk, come on up for question 1. And let's start with Kirk, and then we'll go with Joe, and then Leo. We are all up here taking notes. Staff, we're all taking notes, capturing your input.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
And
Mayor,
that too.
Council, and Mr. Spano. So my vision for what would be in 5 years that City Place, at the phase 1 of City Place, would be highly integrated with the convention center with a similar look and feel. The City Place renderings that I've seen are pretty intense and pretty wonderful, and no offense, but the convention center is a little dated. And so I would hope that it matches the quality and expectations that City Place is bringing to the city. I would also hope that all technology, you mentioned technology, how important it is, but not just current technology, but also embracing future technology that's created in the city and in the region, is piloted, tested, and available here. So it becomes kind of like a prototyping test bed. So there's a real cool factor when you come to the convention center. You might be able to try out something new, maybe a voice recognition or visual or what have you. I'd see the city has a regional focus and presence that is a destination for events and general activities, that it's a collaboration with both, again, City Place, even the stadium, and any future developments in the area. That the convention center would be an area where people would stay after the convention, that they would wander around and not just drive off and go somewhere else to have entertainment or activities. There would be ways to use, to access the convention center for local community members, nonprofits, and other non-corporate entities to take advantage of this. I know this was talked about with the stadium. I don't think that's really materialized, and so I would hope that that materializes into something that's really embraced here so that everybody in the community feels like they can have access to these great resources. And there would be small, or smaller kind of mom and pop shops alongside larger corporate businesses. So it's not just kind of like the generic convention center with all of the same corporate names that you see, and not just the big money names or the cool, whatever the latest and greatest that has big money behind it, even if it's not like a general corporate thing, but something that's a little bit smaller. And lastly is how much. It was just a question. I don't know how much revenue the convention center draws, like a net for the city. But I would ask is what would the mechanics be if someone wanted to, quote, blow up the convention center and start from scratch, like if kind of City Place wanted to embrace that as part of it. What would that take? How would that work? What would Santa Clara give up in taking down the convention center and giving it up for 2 or 3 years? Would the private entity then pay that difference to the city, if it's $2 million, $5 million, whatever it is, a year until it's built and can have resources back? So I mean, it's great to say, yeah, everything's on the table, but if there's not really thought about, are you willing to give up a convention center for 3 years or 4 years until it gets rebuilt, or partner with San Jose or partner with a local one in the area? I don't think that's really feasible or realistic, and is maybe putting something out there that's not attainable. So what would that look like? And I hope that's something that is seriously on the table to really make something extraordinary here to match the extraordinary City Place. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Okay, Joe?
Thanks, Mayor and City Council, City Staff. Joe Eustace. I work in one of the local hotels. I wanted to speak because I didn't want to be left out. I didn't know it would be such a small group. But I think in 5 years, the center would provide a great educational source for the city, training some workers. There are a lot of workers who are a lot of city residents who can't work at all the high-tech industry, but we would create some educational opportunity for them. The center would be attracting need dates. I think that any operator could fill the second 2 weeks of October. That's not really a big deal, but being able to attract those need dates before and after holidays, during school vacations, some of the need dates that are needed for the hotels to fill some sleeping rooms. Opportunities for small businesses, a lot of the pictures you showed, the destination management that would do some of the interior design work, some of the food and beverage that would be provided, local farmers, farm to table, that type of stuff. And it's very important. The communication is important. The Wi-Fi, internet access is important, but it's important to a lot of customers. You mentioned the zero waste and LEED certified. Most of my experience, or most of my recent experience, comes with the San Diego Center that wasn't mentioned here. But that's I believe, a silver or gold certified building, and they have zero waste. All of the cardboard is recycled. Their waste food is used for mulch and to grow in the parks and stuff. So that's a possible need. And I think the operator would have expanded the facility, but expanded it while they were operating the existing facility. It's very hard to close a facility for 2 or 3 years and then get it restarted again. And the most important thing we can do right now, I think, is expedite this process, because the future sales are right now not taking place. So expediting that process any way we could do that, with changes coming along after a 5-year contract has been completed, might be important. Thank you.
Good, very good. Thank you, Joe. Leo.
Yeah, hello. I'm going to disagree with our previous speaker just a little bit. I think we're moving very fast on this. As a community, this is a big venue and a big part of this community. And to make just an RFP for 6 weeks or so and then choose a vendor, it's probably risky. But I'm going to answer number one question. So in 5 years, I believe that a governance structure or a board would be overseeing immense growth in this area. It would include the 49ers. It would include the hotels. It would include Great America, which is now going 365. And these people all live here. They're all stakeholders here. And more importantly, they have resources to bring. And I think that these people that are running this would have seen what was happening and said, hey, let's get the people early on from City Center to be on the board too. That way, everything's done in unison. And in 5 years, there's no reason, because we're talking about expansion. Guess what? I'm going to share a little story with you. I did a show. It was an Intel show downstairs in the D Hall. After we did the keynote, the people walked across the street to the 49ers stadium and had a nice little gala dinner. We have the room. If we incorporated the Hyatt, the 49ers, perhaps even adult entertainment at Great America, like movie nights or whatever, that would be, people could walk there. I think in 5 years, we could be a top 10 destination for conventions. That's how, but it is going to start with the stakeholders who live here and actually have a direct interest, and they'll be aligned with what Dan said, which is having a mission statement. Our mission, very simple, to make sure they book next year. And they consistently want to come here, and they tell their other meeting planners, gosh, our convention attendees had a great experience in Santa Clara. That's what we're all here for tonight. So I hope I answered the question, and thank you all for taking the time for having this community venue and town meeting. I think it's very important that we all get to say what we want to say, and your listening is very much appreciated.
Very good. Thank you very much, Leo. Okay, so that's what I have for question number 1 from you all. Anybody else want to answer the question? Come on up. We want to hear from you. Yay, awesome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, panel. My name's Aaron Hodges. I'm one of the hotel managers here in the Valley. And I agree with a lot of what was stated from some of the previous comments, but just to elaborate on a few things. I think in order for us to be successful in the next 5 years, we need to continue to work on our collaboration and inclusivity. I think those were some comments that were made earlier, specifically between the convention center operator, the hotels, the businesses, locals, obviously the city, and the tertiary market, San Jose in particular. We need to continue to work with those individuals to bring business to the destination. We certainly need to increase our marketing spend. I think that one of the challenges with the CVB in the past, the convention center for that matter, is that we've been completely underfunded with resources to properly market the destination. So we need to have a robust strategy in order to properly get Santa Clara on the map to have that destination that we're all talking about. I really like the orange people in the inner tubes too. I don't know if we can throw that in there. That was a joke. But I do like Debbie's comment too about just blow it up and start over if we can get there. One of the comments that wasn't talked about is transportation. We all know transportation is a huge problem of ours, getting to and from work. It's a challenge for our customers, certainly when we have events going on. Many of my customers, they come into the market, they fly into San Jose, and they can't get to my hotel because we're having a huge event. It takes hours on end. So how do we create a partnership with the convention center, with the businesses, with the hotels, to create a system of transportation that is getting our guests to and from the convention center to create a great experience for them? Because ultimately, that's what we want, right? We want them to have a great experience and say, you know, I went to Santa Clara, I was so impressed with the customer service, the facilities, the transportation, the ease to come and go, and that's really what it's all about. Improved technology, obviously, it's kind of redundant because I know everyone keeps talking about it. Obviously, we're in the heart of Silicon Valley, and there's so much opportunity at all of our businesses to incorporate technology into our venues. So with that, though, comes an aggressive capital plan. So whoever the bidder is, there needs to be an aggressive capital plan to continue to invest in the facilities and stay current with technology, because as we all know, that's changing so quickly. And then the environmental component, again, it can't be understated how important that is, how responsible it is to be good stewards of the environment, and certainly we would want a partner that is actively participating in those efforts and making a difference in our community. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for coming up, Aaron. Okay, anybody else on question number 1 before we turn to council? Everybody good? Okay, great input. Council, what do you think? What's your vision?
Come on, Teresa. Transportation.
Well, okay. Well, I love everything that everybody's saying, and I think, you know, that was mentioned about the transportation piece. I think one of the things that would make the convention center successful is if we really work on developing a multimodal station over at the Great America Station and make use of all the possibilities with the light rail and buses and the ACE and Capital Corridor, because I mean the numbers of people that are coming into Santa Clara every day from the Sacramento metropolitan area and the Central Valley are staggering, and, that could even be, helpful to people who would want to come to the convention center. So I do think that we've got to be part of a larger transportation network. I think we're going to have to figure out kind of like who we are going to compete with a little bit. The vision is like, so are we going to say we're going to be for, like I had an interesting conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago about this. Do we want to say we want to be kind of like a premier venue for new companies or new ventures, say we're not going to be, and actually San Jose, God bless them, they've actually attracted some shows back from San Francisco. They kind of initially outgrew San Jose, and then they went to Moscone, like Apple. I think Apple developers is back in San Jose, and Facebook developer is there. So, like to say, is that maybe we're not after that, but maybe we're after the smaller companies and almost being an incubator for companies that are on the rise. And maybe that would particularly want to showcase technology and the things that they're working on. So for me, that's part of it. I think that's where we've been kind of successful. And just in terms of the size of the space that we have and the cost, that maybe we should look at how could we do something like be a premier location for, like I said, I don't want to call them starter shows, but, companies that are on the rise, or groups that are not going to need something the size of a Moscone or a San Jose.
Thank you, council member. Mayor?
Yes, just to talk about transportation, and you talked about the multimodal station and bringing people in. I see us in the next 5 years trying to figure out how we're going to transport the convention goers and all the people that are coming here for different events just in the immediate area here. And whether it's from parking at Mission College to the hotels to Great America, but just shuttling just around this area. And I think in the next 5 years, we need to do that. I see in the next 5 years that this area is going to change dramatically, more than any of us can ever imagine with City Place. City Place is going to transform this and bring us up 100 notches in the world of entertainment and destination and everything else. Again, to see the enormity of that project and what it's going to bring to this area is just something that it's going to hit us, and it's coming soon. I mean, it's coming sooner than we think, which is a great thing. But in the meantime, in the next few years, we have to do some immediate short-term upgrades to the convention center. I see us doing that in the next 5 years. And then we have to look at, what the nut we're going to have to crack for the long-term upgrades in the center. And so we have to come up with some kind of a financial resource to do that. So, and that needs to come in the next 5 years. I mean, just look around. So I see that in the next 5 years, we have to figure out the identity of this convention center. What does it mean? But whatever we do, I want to make sure that we keep Santa Clara's identity with it. We're the center of Silicon Valley, but we have such a rich history of our city. No matter what we do, I want to see Santa Clara. I don't want us to get lost in what we have here. So I envision that. Coordination of events. Right now, we don't have a lot of coordination of events between the stadium, the convention center, Great America, which is evident by all the parking issues and some other issues and transportation issues when you come out here. So it has to be a whole concerted effort of coordination of events. And I see that sort of in the governance structure that we'll talk about later, to make sure that we have representation on our governance structure to get everyone to work together out here, because we will have so many, there's so many opportunities out here, and I don't want to lose the opportunities in the next 5 years. We have to make a real big effort to work together to get that done. Also, in the next 5 years, I see having a coffee shop here in the convention center, which is something we don't have. That drives me crazy every time I come here. So we
Start
need.
with a kiosk.
We could start with a kiosk, and I think that's where the small businesses come in. And again, when I say I don't want to lose Santa Clara, that's our small businesses are that's the fabric, the real fabric of our city. That's how we started, that's who we are, and we can't lose that. We just can't lose that. So we have to find really good ways to incorporate the small businesses in the next 5 years. 5 years from now, when the core of City Place is hopefully built and up and running, it's an entirely different ballgame in terms of the attractions. People they're going to want to be here because this is going to be the place to be. This will be the place to be when City Place, and which, is also a catalyst for all kinds of development out here. And we're incorporating residential development out here, which we never have before. So we're looking at, a ton of units out here. So it's going to bring a new dynamic out here. So that's where all the transportation comes in and everything else. So we have a lot to do in the next 5 years. But again, there's so much opportunity. I see us taking advantage of that now and building the structure now.
Excellent. Council member?
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure how okay, there you go. So like in answer to the questions, which I just sort of went down the list, what's happening to make it a success and what's not happening. So I believe that some of these things will be begun within 5 years. Some of them will not be able to come to fruition until in 10 years, because Related's going to take more than 5 years to build out. And that goes to the activities around the convention center. We need places to go, things to do within a walkable distance, and we also need to have shuttles available to take conventioneers off-site to other places within Santa Clara. We need a responsive staff, a full-service staff that can do booking of hotel and even motel rooms to arrange for food, banquets, AV equipment, advertising, decorations, lighting, all those things we saw in some of those pictures. We need I called it adaptable space. I think you called it something else in your slides, but multifunctional space. Thank you. Something would accommodate trade shows, banquets, entertainment, a whole host of activities that conventioners want. You're right, it's not a static room like this setup anymore that conventioners are looking for. The ability to book both multi-day events and single-day events. Robust connectivity, meaning free internet service, digital services, for the presenters here. Ways to connect the audience with presenters. You have those instant vote things and all that kind of stuff. We need to have that all in place. Retail services on site. I put Pete's because I prefer it to Starbucks, but something like that, a coffee shop, like the mayor said. The UPS store, which is here, which we need to keep because shipping services, printing services on site are important. And there may be other kind of retail outlets that are important to convention goers. The ability to arrange off-site visits to local points of interest, partnering with our stadium and with California Great America for additional venues in connection with a convention that might be based in our convention center. A couple of things that I see not happening that would add to a success: no more deferred maintenance. And I said no more rubber chickens, but that goes to the food thing that you were talking about. How we should relate to local businesses. We obviously want to keep a close working relationship with our chamber. It's one way to capture the small business involvement because our chamber has a lot of small business members, and that would be the connection, how a convention operator would connect with those small businesses and be sure to bring them in for events to be used for conventions and trade shows and so forth. And contacts at all the hotels, not just the convention center hotels, because if you're bringing in some events that might be the convention goers are looking for a lower priced place to stay, they need to be able to reach out to the hotels like along El Camino and so forth. Right. And then provide transportation to get to and from. To me, what's important in the selection would be things like looking for innovation, innovative solutions, innovative proposals, a capital improvement plan, expansion possibilities, and promotional activities, including a visitors bureau. In other words, how is the convention operator going to have enough staff in place, and what would they do to reach out and bring these conventions, bring these trade shows, whatever it might be, to us, and especially around booking hotel rooms for multi-day events.
Excellent. Very, very good. Councilmember Davis.
Okay,
So, Kurt, you brought us some really good things, especially using the current technology as a showcase. I think that is an excellent idea. We are the center of what's possible. So I think that having the largest, I guess, I don't even want to call it, it's a behemoth coming to City Place, is the largest thing that is going to hit west of the Mississippi. So yes, we are going to be a target. And I think with the current technology and showcasing that, I think is a really good idea because we're going to have that global entity that will come here. I like your idea of the community room. I'm a big community room person. I don't know why we just can't get these places, but our people want to engage and be part of what goes on, and they seem to be isolated. But we have Donna West. We have a resident. Yay! So they want to be part of what we do. They don't want to be isolated as we grow, and that goes to what the mayor said. I don't want to lose the identity of what the city is about. So we need to be very cognizant of that. And the small mom and pops, yes, they are the fabric of our community. We lost Mondo Burrito a while ago. It was shut down for development or whatever, and that created quite a brouhaha, because it was like the best burrito in the city. So I would love to see that kind of thing happen within the convention center and around the convention center, because they are the people, they are our community. I agree with Aaron that maybe we are unfunded in some places, and marketing is one of them. We are not utilizing or having a lack, we do have a lack of communication between the convention center, the 49ers, the Great America. I mean, I think these people have to be the stakeholders and City Place. Going forward, they have to have open communication all the time. The transportation, I know I tease Teresa because she's our VTA representative. So, and I totally get that, because people come from all over the place, and if we don't have a way of getting them here, then we're going to have a problem. And when we do have multiple events, we do have a problem if there's something at the stadium. Then Tasman is shut down. And if you're here for another reason, you kind of like, oh, what's going on here? So we don't have a lot of the kiosk signs that will direct people to where they need to go. I think people get very confused when they come to our area and they don't know the area. They really have a hard time navigating this city, and they get frustrated, and I can understand that completely. The other big thing is, how come you're in Silicon Valley and I don't get free Wi-Fi? Some hotels have free Wi-Fi, some places don't have free Wi-Fi, but they look at us as the technology world, so why aren't we giving them free Wi-Fi? So I think that's an incentive for people to come here. And I agree with having this multi-adaptive kind of places. If we can, I know, Leo, you brought that up. You said, I had intel, we were here, we walked over here, we did this. But that's all part of that communication plan that we do not have. And if we're not marketing it right, we're not using our assets completely. And when I ran for council in 2012, I wanted this to be entertainment district, the place to be, because we had the area. It was just ripe for what we needed. And so I really believe this is going to work for us. We just have to have a little bit more communication. And the marketing program is probably the best way to get people to see what's here, what's there. But it's that walkability, the transportation, the shuttle buses, whatever we have to do to get them there. I know I love to blow the place up, but in all matter of fact, we can't just blow it up. Because everybody books 3-5 years out. So we don't want to lose that business, but we want to say, we're growing, we're expanding, how can we accommodate you through a change that we are going through? You want to give them that anticipation that you are you're listening to them. So if we have to take down half the convention center to rebuild it or whatever, I think that anyone that's doing this RP should really take that into consideration, that we can take it down in parts and rebuild. And then that way it's more exciting, because City Place will be built in phases also. So when people, they have something more to come back to, so that we don't lose the business that we have, but we can keep it going. So those are, I guess, my comments for question number 1. Thank you, Sean.
Very good. Excellent. Would you like to offer anything, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Sean. I've been fortunate enough to, well, number one, this is my district, so this is definitely the cool district where everything is happening right now. So, so this is very important to me too, because this affects the people in this area. But I've been really fortunate, over the last couple of months to speak on behalf of the city. And one of the groups that's been coming here for the last 8 years, I believe it is, the Silicon Valley Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum. They bring in like 10,000 people from all over the world, and it's not just these people. They are representing a lot of different companies, but I feel like if we can make these positive changes that will continue to allow the convention center to grow, but also capitalize on these people that are coming already and find out what their needs, how we can reach out to them to make our their experience here positive and make other people want to be able to come here and experience maybe for another group that they belong to have that same experience. And I think that possibility is definitely here. Another group I know that comes here is Rick Steves. He comes here with his travel group every year. I believe it's every year. I went one year and there's just thousands of people. And, again, talking about transportation, our relationship to San Jose Airport and just all the transportation around us. I think we can use those opportunities again to help, sell the convention center and use those opportunities to make it better and just continue to build and attract more people into this area as we continue to grow. I think the shuttle is definitely a possibility and something to look into, especially as San Jose continues to grow. And two other things that came to mind regarding the kiosks. I think, just pop-up kiosks around the convention center that give, people opportunity to buy at different levels, especially, if we become an entertainment district that also appeals to families, we want to have that marketability to families and that are on a budget. And so need to keep all of that in mind. And also, as a way to market the city, one thing I've noticed about this convention center is there's no like a little tourist, shop here in the convention center, and I think the Hyatt has a store, or they have a little part of their one of their store in the lobby area, but it sells stuff for San Jose, so that doesn't really help Santa Clara. So so we need something that helps sell Santa Clara in the convention center as well, and. I think that's all I have for now, Sean. So thank you very much.
Very good,
Yeah.
very good. I'm just imagining how valuable this is for the proposers, for the review panel to have the access to this information. We're going to move on to question number 2. How should the new operator, interact and engage with the local businesses? More specifically, how can the operator help local businesses strengthen, support, and grow? So I have speaker cards. We'll start, Kirk, I'll call you back up here. And we also have Joe and Leo. And Aaron, if you're a game, I've got a card here for you. If you're game, awesome, great. So come on up, Kirk. Answer question 2.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Spano. So the biggest thing I would ask for is figuring out how to help small business. And I'm not going to try and prescribe what that is, but I will offer some asks or suggestions. And one is to educate and encourage on what small business ownership can look like and what those models are, not just traditional, high-tech, go in a garage and do something. You can't have a public event in someone's garage. So things like, again, I mentioned worker cooperatives because that is a legitimate business model based on current practices that can scale from 2 people to 2,000 people and is rooted right here in Silicon Valley. I'd look at how non-tech businesses can thrive in Santa Clara. Everybody talks about Silicon Valley. I came out here. I'm a product of the issues that we face here in Silicon Valley. I'm not from this area. I came to this area for high tech. And I'm not in high tech anymore, but the businesses that are not high tech are having a very difficult time to survive here and to function here. So how can we help that situation? That to me would be a big ask. And then just create awareness so that people, that the community is aware of what these issues are, and the other businesses, small businesses want to help each other, and just how can we help support that small business fabric in our area here.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Very good. Great. And then Joe? If Joe is still here, we can go to Leo.
Okay, I think I might have answered this one on the last question. However, there is something I wanted to bring up. Going back to having all the stakeholders involved in the management of the solution. The local stakeholders represent all of us. So what happens is if you have the leadership of all the organizations, employees working in the place that is also managed by their leadership, then amazing things can happen, because everybody is, like I said before, absolutely, from the CEO to the person who delivers the convention meal, are all on the same page. They are all here to simply create a great experience for convention goers. And I think, of course, that's all about local business. And thank you for acknowledging about the gap. I was surprised, because I work here all the time, that we only did that once that I can remember, because I work almost every show here. And it's a great opportunity. We already have these great companies right around us. You know, it occurred to me, why not, you're right, why not have a tech representative from one of these companies, eBay or whoever is in Santa Clara, Intel, for example. This is their home, right? They do shows here a lot. To have them being part of the driven management of this, well, possibilities are really endless. But the people of having that kind of a scenario where the hotels and everybody's involved allows leadership within the leadership of the actual whoever comes in with the RFP, hopefully, I'm hoping obviously, it's a nonprofit, can see the value in having a board that's really strong and will include all these people. So there isn't lack of communication, like you brought up. Everything's very cut and clear, and everybody's communicating, and everybody, these powerful entities around us, are all working together. Something, guess what, hasn't been happening, right? If you have just one entity, then they're going to look out for their interest, and they may be required to communicate with others, but maybe they go, well, if I communicate this, it's not really my best interest. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I almost forgot the important thing is having all the people from, like I said, the CEO to the food service worker, all under the same management. In other words, they're represented in their leadership. It's a win. And I just can't tell you how absolutely, I don't know if you have had a chance to go to San Jose, but that is just a remarkable turnaround. And you're right, somebody mentioned we've gotten Apple, we've gotten Facebook. It's booked 3 years out solid with huge shows. And it was very similar to this 10 years ago exactly. That's how old Team San Jose, that organization is. So it's been remarkable. And they've spent, I mean, their convention center, I don't know if you get a chance, please go down there if you're on the council to see and say, hey, do you have any pictures of what it used to look like? And you go, hey, that looks familiar. because it's remarkable what they've been able to do. And I think that is due to the people showing up every day, 100% committed, all of them. So I know I keep repeating myself a bit about this, but you can tell I'm a little passionate about it because I do care about our community here. Like I said, I've been part of it for over 30 years. So thank you again. And great. I may skip the third question because I go crazy.
Okay. Thank you, Leo. And passion is good, Leo. Aaron?
You're tough to follow, man. I swear. Maybe we'll mix it up the next time.
Yeah.
But I love the passion too. I think that's what it's all about. I think that's why we're all here for sure. These are a tough couple of questions, I have to admit. But I think when it comes to helping our local businesses in this setting in particular, it's really about where's our opportunity to grow our business. And I think we all know in this room that for quite some time it's been on the weekends, right? How do we get groups to come to Santa Clara to have convention business? How do we get leisure travelers here when we don't have an event going on at the stadium and the like? So really for the bidders, it's about partnering with the local businesses and identifying ways to generate interest in this market. Ways that they can help the local businesses in particular would be to offer discounts to them during need periods. So creating incentives to local businesses that can come and have meetings and events and things of that nature when it makes sense from a business perspective for them to do so. They also need to be advocates of the community, which means they need to, at the grassroots level, understand the businesses that are here. Who are the mom and pops of the business community, and who are the big players too, and everything in between, because when they go out and they represent Santa Clara and the hotels and the business community, they need to tell a story. They need to be able to say, here are all the wonderful things that we're going to bring to you, and why you would want to bring your program to our destination. So thank you.
Great. Excellent. Good. Anybody else want to answer question number 2? Anybody else? I'll turn to council on question number 2.
I'll start with that.
Good.
I think that part of it, and it's more probably marketing the city in terms of, and also filling up hotel rooms. I think a real underutilized market that we haven't explored a lot in Santa Clara is the sports market. And knowing that we have some, fairly good sports facilities here, whether it's the convention center being used for volleyball or basketball. I know they do some of those type of indoor sports, but being the soccer mom that I am, knowing how much money I spend in Los Angeles and San Diego and all that, there's so much marketing ability for sports that it's crazy, especially girl sports, because all the families travel with the girls, all of them, all the time. And I think that it's a great weekend use of the hotel rooms, and also use of small businesses. They love pizza, they really do, and other opportunities for our small businesses, because when you have tournaments and you have a soccer tournament with 150 teams that need places to stay and need places to eat. It's such and it's year round now.
Yeah.
We have swim meets and soccer tournaments and basketball and volleyball. I mean, it's just endless what happens. And I think it's an area that hasn't been fully explored. And it's an area that I think can not only benefit our hotels, but our local businesses as well, which I think can be coordinated from the convention center as well.
Excellent. Very good. Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of, once again, interacting and engaging with local businesses, like I had mentioned about, having smaller shows that might be able to grow. And I would think one of the things would be to have an outreach and a connection to some of the up and coming businesses to say this is the way that we can help you showcase your companies, and particularly like the mayor mentioned, some of these typical sports. Like I know some folks and that somebody I know worked, and some other people who went to that. What is it? TwitchCon, that was a couple weeks ago in San Jose.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me does not sound appealing, but to like pay money to watch other people play video games and do all that stuff. But there's a lot of people very much into that. And so one of the things, once again, if, we've got a lot of companies in the area that are engaged in virtual reality and artificial intelligence and gaming, and even our elusive comics in Santa Clara that touches into a whole nother world that a lot of folks enjoy, escaping to or going to. And once again, if the technology infrastructure was state of the art, such that could really be a showcase for that aspect. Like I said, the stuff that I was hearing from people who were at that TwitchCon, they said it was just, it's like Comic-Con taken to another level, and the money that people were spending there. And, I guess it was incredibly, so I just think that there's a huge, that's an opportunity, like I said, once again, to leverage. We've got a lot of interesting tech things going on at San Jose State and Santa Clara, and Mission, and of course Stanford and Cal and all of that. But like maybe that is really, like I said, to kind of incubate and be a showcase for that kind of thing.
Excellent, very good. Anybody else interested in taking a shot at question 2? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I just wanted to add, going along with what Councilmember O'Neill said, and also the mayor too. My daughter plays basketball, and so we've traveled to several tournaments, so I know exactly what the mayor is saying in terms of how appealing it is to families, and how they travel with the families, and they get a lot of kids at those tournaments. So definitely, I would like to see that explored as well. But something I meant to say it before, and I left it off. Somebody mentioned about an educational source here, and Mission College, Wilcox High School, they have like hospitality type programs, and if there's some way that internships could be offered, and coordinated through the college, Mission College, because they have the hospitality program, and also Wilcox High School. I think that would be a great way as well to reach out to the community and integrate the community into the new plan as well.
Excellent, very good, great. Thank you. Okay, anything else before we move on to question 3? Anything else? Okay, so we'll move on to question 3, and this one gets a little bit I think a little bit more specific and detailed, and it does start moving towards the RFP, at least helping the review panel as well as council. What are the most important qualities and characteristics you want to see in the next convention center operator and the Visitors Bureau provider? What should be emphasized in making the selection? So, Aaron, you want to give that one? You interested in? Oh, great. I see how I mixed up the order on that one. Okay, so you might be it.
Thank you. Another tough question. Obviously, we're looking for an operator who is comfortable with change. I think that most importantly, convention centers are kind of like a living organism. They're always changing and evolving, and so whoever the bidder that wins this they need to be comfortable with continuing to challenge how we want to be, how we want to facilitate things, staying current. And in order to do so, I think you have to have a lot of experience in it. So certainly somebody who is well-versed in convention center operation, both from a perspective of operating a CVB and not. Some of us as hoteliers are advocates of wanting to play a major role when it comes to the CVB component, and certainly whoever the bidder is that is recognized for this We really want somebody who understands that. That's really all I had.
Okay, no, that's good. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Leo, okay, we're going to pass. Kirk?
Good evening again, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Spano. So I would hope that, and again, I'm looking at this from, it was two parts. It was the Convention Center and the Visitors Bureau.
Right.
I'm looking at it from the Visitors Bureau side. And I would hope they embrace all local business. I'm a small business and I'm not part of the chamber. And oftentimes I feel like I'm excluded from a lot of the city announcements or engagements that the chamber is involved in. And I feel like the chamber is like the business link into the city activities. And I just don't think a small business should be held hostage to being a part of the chamber to be included in that. And I don't think that's a deliberate action. I'm just saying that's how I feel as a business. I've been in Santa Clara now a little over 12 years, and I don't see that level of engagement at the city level from like the that organization reaching out to non-members. I'd also how do you balance between the financial returns you're looking for and the quality of life things that might not have that financial return, like the high-tech operators and the things that the Visitor Bureau wants to bring in to make a lot of money for the city. But how do you balance that with bringing people to the businesses and the resources that make the city livable and exciting and vibrant? How do you balance that need? Because they're probably not the biggest generators of revenue for the city, but they're the biggest generators of quality of life for the city. So how do you balance those two things? And then again, just raising awareness for visitors that come in of all the businesses that are here. We're on the probably about as far south away from where we're sitting right now in Santa Clara that you can be. We're right on the border of San Jose. So we're not in the historic downtown. We're not going to be in the new downtown.
Right.
We're not going to go uptown or whatever, whatever these things are. All these activities are not around us in terms of the part of Santa Clara that we're in. So I would just ask that the Visitor Bureau look at how to embrace all businesses in the city.
Great.
For all residents and visitors.
Excellent. Makes a lot of sense. And I will check, but I don't think Joe is here, and I just want to make sure we don't lose that. And anybody else interested in question 3? Okay, I'll turn to council on question number 3. Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I kind of want to respond to that one. The CBB was basically connected with the chamber, and I think Mr. Fenton brought to our attention that only 4% of the CBBs are part of a chamber of commerce, and then there are 60% surveyed that CBBs are non-membership. So I think that what Kurt is kind of talking about is like, so that the people, the mom and pops don't get lost, that we need to market to every business in the city of Santa Clara. And we might have to go a little further out to our border cities that are around that would participate in something. So I think that that would be good for anyone that's doing the RFP to take a really good look at how that relationship is going to work. So I don't know what model we're going into, but the CBB would have to be working with the convention center, but away from that chamber aspect so that they are part of the conversation, but not guiding the conversation. So I just wanted to say that to you. And Aaron, I know we're trying very hard here. With you being attached to the convention center as a hotel, I'm here a lot in your bar. And it's a nice place and you have food, and I meet a lot of people here because it's easy. I mean, they go, where do you want to meet? And I go, oh, the Hyatt, let's go to the Hyatt. And the fact that you have valet also. So it's just easy when you have a place to meet people and talk, and then another place to go and see. So I think that when we look at the convention center and how it can like kind of morph organically, the other thing that we are experiencing, even though I'm a baby boomer, millennials want the experience. So they're looking for, like, you have the Japanese sushi downstairs, and I'm looking for like maybe a pizza maker, like Kurt knows, in New York, they throw the dough up in the air. So it's just an experience that they've never had. Or if you have like a chef that comes in, maybe from the culinary, school from Mission College, and they show somebody how to cook something, and then you engage people. So it's an experience in your lobby. And then kind of move that into the convention center a little bit. If we're not booked here, is there some way that we can kind of move people around to just have an experience? So that's the kind of thing I look at. And then outside we have the beautiful fountains in the front of the convention center. And I had visions of like food trucks and people just coming to town and, oh wow, look what's going on, kind of a thing. So like that pop-up experience, I think, will work and kind of generate a little bit more excitement, kind of a thing. So that's where I see the convention center and the CBB kind of working together, like we're marketing this for this weekend, or something like that, like a destination experience.
Yeah.
And working with the hotels. And so I think that might bring in a different group of people for the weekends, because I know you're Monday through Thursday booked. It's that weekend that we have to fill in, and how do we bring these people to a destination? So I'm looking for that experience thing, and I think that would work for us in this, especially in this area, especially like with City Place opening up. With if anybody has seen any of that project, I mean, they've got experiences happening all over the place. So I think that's gonna make people want to come here. So that's my thinking on that one.
Good.
So
Excellent, very good. Anybody else want to answer? Yes, Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, thank you. So to kind of tap into a little bit to what Mr. Vartan was talking about, some of the small businesses, I think that it's difficult because we tend to think of everything, like many convention centers are kind of in the middle of a downtown, or they're in a bustling waterside district or something like that. So here, we've got we do have some assets, and we have a lot of businesses that are, so it's a little bit different venue. But, one of the things that I've heard from some folks is that they feel like that I think when people were thinking about the stadium coming to town, and that there was going to be 250,000 square feet of space, that it was going to be kind of like an add-on to the convention center. But I've kind of wondered if that has just, as I look at the numbers of events at the stadium and the convention center, whether that just basically, instead of working with the convention center, if they competed with the convention center, and so that we didn't find a way to make that an additive function, so and also like some of the other venues or places in town that might benefit, like, many of us are longtime boosters of the Triton Museum of Art and the beautiful garden that the city owns there, and that facility, or facilities that might be available for rent on the beautiful Santa Clara University campus and things like that. To be looking at all of those types of assets that may exist in the city. And as I said, let's not make it, make it additive, not, so it's a minus. And so what should be emphasized in making a selection? Well, I like to see somebody that has proven really good business results and very strong business practices.
Good.
To be practical,
Good.
which is, part of my responsibility as a fiduciary, is to make sure that somebody's really knows what they're doing.
Great, excellent, very good. Anybody else? Any other mayor, council? Don't feel like
I'll
you have
say
to.
some- Oh,
Yes.
yeah, we love to talk. Okay. I just want to say, to follow up on what Teresa just said, that for me, what I would be looking for in terms of an operator is someone who has really studied what we've done in the past, because we've had some, management issues and really governance issues as well. So to look at what we've done in the past and to come up with a model that doesn't repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past, that's going to create something for us that's going to work better for us. So we're not, just again, repeating what has happened to us, which has not worked.
Yeah.
So.
Good. Okay, anything else here before we move on? Okay, so I will now move to the last item on the agenda, which is I'll just take a couple minutes on this. So there's a survey that the city has, and we have the URL, and please respond to the survey, because that survey will be open, I think, throughout the entire process, so continually collecting input. And then there were also, 27 online responses so far, and that I summarized and tallied, analyzed. And then there were some mini little surveys, just a couple questions, postcards that were sent out to local businesses, and there were 43 of those submitted. 80%, so 70 total, 80% were business owners, executives, or managers, and then 20% were community members, and over 90% of the respondents were live or work in Santa Clara. And I should also say, as I go through these results, and I'm just going to do this really quickly, this is not a scientific survey. This was not a representative sample, so we should not think of these results as valid, representative of the business community or the larger community, and certainly we can't generalize, but it does give a sense about what the respondents said. And as I was listening here to the community members and council members, almost all of you touched on something that is in the survey. So in terms of vision, what's happening, transportation, no surprise. There's new transportation options for accessibility, and if we had drilled down, it would have looked like something like a shuttle or something like that as well. Wanting more entertainment and performance options, including cultural performances, and then venues within the convention center that would support those performance options. We saw some of those performance options in the slides that Dan showed. Current facility is improved and enhanced. Now that was just very broad. Is this a major upgrade? Is this cleaning the carpets? Probably a range of all of those. A focus on regional workforce and talent development, and somebody, one of the community members had mentioned that as a great way for convention customers. And more open space and green park, natural parkland, so relating into the environment and to sustainability. And we heard free Wi-Fi, and sure enough, it showed up on the survey. Free Wi-Fi. When asking how the new operator can support local businesses, marketing, social media, website, all things digital. Trade shows were really scored really highly as a way of attracting business. Public relations, and then printed materials as well. And I heard something about hotels that are not located here. How do you find what those hotels are? Is there a brochure or something like that? So printed materials. And then other additional services, visitor services, and information center. As we had heard multiple times, small business opportunities, advocating for particular industries, wanting media relations from the operator, helping local businesses with media relations, and then of course, economic development. And then in terms of, we did ask for community benefits, and should the operator provide community benefits, the survey respondents across the board said yes. They're looking for quality services that add value for local businesses. We heard also raising awareness of local businesses, showcasing local businesses, and then giving, and we heard this as well, preference for local businesses when booking space and procuring services, and that also came up in terms of not just local business, but also community space. That would be another community benefit that the operator would provide. And so just wrapping up this segment here, the next steps in terms of gathering input. So we have the data from tonight, from the visioning dialogue, summarized, integrated, and again, that survey will remain open throughout the entire process. And so that will be made available to the public and to the review panel and to the proposers in terms of what it is that we keep hearing from the community for input. So there's the survey link there, and you can locate that from the city website. There's a link to the city website, so it's easy to find the survey. And please do fill out the survey. It's wonderful information. We had already looked at this slide in terms of RFP next steps, so I'm not sure there's anything else we need to look at that. I think we're good there. And so I think we are ready to wrap up here, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't think we talked about wrapping up, but Deanna, I think it would be appropriate for you to close us out tonight.
I want to thank the City Council for directing that we have this governance and business engagement workshop long ago, because it obviously has helped focus our vision for how we want to move forward with the process, as well as allowed for us to dream about what the future can be, and particularly focusing on our own governance and how we have to work better to make those statements very clear. I also want to just put a plug in for the survey. We only launched it about 2 weeks ago. We had to close it so we could provide some summaries. So already having received 70 responses, I feel that we're making some good momentum here. And just to the extent possible, please encourage people to respond, because we really want to make sure that we get the maximum amount of input from the community. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for taking the time on a Thursday night to share with us the evening and share your ideas. So thank you so much. I think this was very good time well spent.
Good. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good job. Closing statement. You did it so well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well,